Hello and welcome to Victoria's Cantina, where today we're having a look at the Hasbro Star Wars The Vintage Collection Luke Skywalker Jedi Destiny Set. This is a special action figure set featuring Luke Skywalker in his Stormtrooper Disguise, as an X-Wing pilot, and as a Jedi Knight. It was a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive this year, 2019, and I was really lucky to get it because I did miss out on the Sith Trooper and I did miss out on the 6-inch Boba Fett in the vintage style packaging, which I was really bummed out about. But that's how it goes sometimes. You're never guaranteed to get exclusives when you go to conventions, and at the very least, I did get this, and I'm really happy I did because this was probably the one I was the most looking forward to. And it's beautiful, very similar to the set that was released last year at Comic-Con with Dr. Afra, BT1, and 000. And of course, you get this very nice holographic style packaging for the silver racetrack that goes around the entire thing. There are all three of the figures in there. And it says, Luke Skywalker rose from humble beginnings to become one of the greatest Jedi the galaxy has ever known. So really cool. There is your UPC on bottom. And the back, I think, is especially cool. It's also holographic and has some really stunning artwork of Luke Skywalker in different scenarios from the original trilogy. The journey of the legendary Luke Skywalker began on Tatooine. A simple farm boy, Luke's life was forever changed when he discovered a distress call from the rebel Princess Leia. Luke infiltrated the Death Star, disguised as a stormtrooper, to rescue the princess. He then joined the rebellion and piloted an X-Wing into battle against the Empire. But the call of the Force was strong, and after training with Jedi Master Yoda, Luke realized his true power as a Jedi Knight. So yeah, let's look at this artwork. Really cool. There's Luke in the X-Wing outfit and going into battle against the Death Star. Here we have him in his Stormtrooper disguise. Return of the Jedi here in Jabba's palace. Yoda, Luke just kind of looking out at the twin suns. And here's where he begins his adventure with Obi-Wan, holographic Princess Leia right there, and then fighting Darth Vader right there on the second Death Star. So this is super, super nice. All right, so I'm going to take a moment, get this unboxed, and when we come back, we'll take a closer look at these three figures. All right, so here are the figures out of the packaging, and they are looking very, very nice. I'm really eager to compare them to their previous quote-unquote definitive versions to see how these have changed. But yeah, so let's go ahead and kick things off with Stormtrooper Luke, and we'll go ahead and get rid of X-Wing Luke, and also Jedi Luke. All right, so this Luke figure here is actually pretty much the same body. If you picked up the recent Vintage Collection Stormtrooper Han that came as a Target exclusive a couple months back, this is essentially the same body, except it has a slightly shortened torso. Obviously, it also has the Luke Skywalker portrait, which is an all-new head sculpt. And I think it looks pretty good. I think it looks a little bit strange because the arms look kind of long. And I think that has to do with them shortening the torso, because obviously Luke is a little short for a stormtrooper, so he should be shorter. But instead of changing all the proportions, all they changed was the size of the torso, which isn't anything new. They've done that before. And honestly, I don't think I would really expect them to shorten the entire figure, just for one figure like this as an exclusive. But let's go ahead and take a close-up look at the head. It looks really nice. I gotta say, this is one of their better Luke Skywalker portraits, and they have a very hard time getting Luke's face right. It looks like in this case, they did a really good job. Now, the hair is a separate sculpted piece, and that is glued onto the figure, but it looks good. They got the sculpt of his hair right. That's another thing they don't always get right. And the skin tone looks good. He's a little bit tanned. And it's got photoreal, so the eyes are pretty precisely painted. And there's a little bit of gloss to the face, but it looks good. The eyebrows look nice, the lips look good, and the hair color is quite nice. Basically just a sandy blonde color. A little bit of highlighting there. It's not all the same color. You can see there's some bits there that look like a little more blonde looking streaks, so that looks really good. The figure itself, really nice sculpt. The armor is very sharp. It's very defined, and the little black buttons there look really good. The entire sculpt, I think, looks very nice. It just looks a little bit funny how he's got these long arms. But the back also looks really good. Look, they also painted these details right there in the back. There's some little bits of silver. I think that's supposed to be like his grappling hook that he uses later in the film. So that's pretty cool. I've never seen them do that on a Luke Skywalker Stormtrooper figure before. There's the holster for the blaster. Now in terms of articulation, so we basically have a ball joint here at the head. So that goes up, down, side to side. You can tilt it a little bit. Insert molded joints at both of these shoulders. You can see there's a white hinge there. Here at the elbows, same thing. So you can bend them, be a little bit beyond 90 degrees actually. So that is pretty cool. Twist it. The left hand is on a rotation. It does not hinge forward and back. And the right hand is also just a swivel. So you're not going to get any upwards or downwards movement there, which is a little odd. That doesn't really seem like something they've been doing that much lately on these newer vintage figures. But you have very nice ball joint there at the torso, so you can get some really good movement there. Here at the hips, you can articulate them outward. They are also on those insert molded connections, so full split right there. And then to kick them forward, well, you got to rotate the joint, but then you can move it forward all the way. Here at the knees, you can bend them, swivel them, and here at the ankles, he's also got ball joints basically. So yeah, pretty nice movement there overall. Not completely modernized, but definitely an improvement over the previous definitive version of Luke in his Stormtrooper outfit. So Luke comes with his Stormtrooper helmet. It looks awesome. I think this is the Rogue One sculpt. It's the same helmet that the recent Stormtrooper Han had. So, it's got a great sculpt, and to get it on there, you're basically just going to push it over his head like that, and it's pretty seamless. It actually looks really good. You could use this as a shorter, regular Stormtrooper if you wanted to do that. Now, of course, he's also got the Stormtrooper issued blaster, and it's got a little bit of silver paint there on the side. And as far as getting it into the holster, it's actually a pretty tight fit. It seems like if you really wanted to, you could probably wedge it in there, but as you can see, it's not really huge like opening, so it would probably work if I jammed it. I don't want to damage the blaster or bend it or anything, so I'm just going to leave it as is. All right, so on the right side, we have the Legacy Collection Luke Skywalker and Stormtrooper Disguise, and you can really see how far they've come since then, because that figure just looks really wonky. It's even hard to get it to stand. You can see it looks kind of like, he's having a hard time standing because of the constraints of the articulation. Now, the new one doesn't have that problem at all, and just looking at those likenesses there, you can really see the difference. Even the color of the neck on this one's kind of red, and then the face is like more peach. But yeah, it's kind of weird. There's even a little bit of discoloration going on here in the torso. I think this one was based on the VOTC Stormtrooper mold from 2004, so it's really outdated. Even though at the time it was an excellent figure. But yeah, no doubt the new one is a vast improvement all the way around, especially in terms of the likeness to Luke. So yeah, definitely worth replacing if you're still using the old one. Now, even with the helmets on, you can see that the new one is a vastly improved figure over this one. This just looks weird. The helmet just looks really strange on there. The figure just looks really strange at this point. But yeah, this is awesome. This is definitely a worthy upgrade, even if it's not articulated necessarily to today's standards. It's still really good, and it's still worthy of replacing your Legacy Collection Luke Skywalker with. Next up, we got X-Wing Luke Skywalker, and this is a completely brand new sculpt from head to toe, and it looks to me like it is based on the 6-inch X-Wing Luke Skywalker figure from Black Series. Definitely looks like they took the proportions of that figure and scaled it down to the 3 3/4 inch scale. Now, the proportions do look really nice on this one. Obviously, the 6-inch Luke is an improvement over what Hasbro has done in the past with 3 3/4 inch scale. So in terms of proportions, this one has a better physique. But yeah, it looks really good. The costume's looking very nice as well. So let's go and take a close-up look at the head. And it looks good. It looks better than most of their Lukes. I don't think it looks as good as the Stormtrooper Luke. It looks a little bit, in fact, like does it look like the 6-inch Black Series Luke? Maybe a little bit. I don't know, the jawline is a little bit off. You can look how far the jaw protrudes away from the neck. That does look a little bit weird. And if you tilt it, maybe it looks a little bit better, but it doesn't look bad. It just doesn't look, it looks a little bit off still. Something's just still not quite right. The hair is pretty similar to the Stormtrooper Luke in the sense that it's layered a little bit. You can see that there's some lighter colored highlights on there. The skin tone looks pretty good. It's a little bit more pink looking than the Stormtrooper Luke. The eyes are very clean, so are the lips and the eyebrows. You can see the chin looks pretty nice. It looks a little bit big, but not too bad. And then the outfit, again, this is a brand new body. The torso looks a little bit elongated from what we've seen before. And proportionally, it does look really nice. The costume looks really nice. The details are painted nicely. And the sculpt has also been handled pretty nicely as well. Like all the details are painted there on the chest box and on his sleeve, some silver. Gloves look pretty good. The boots look pretty nice, very glossy looking. And you do have those really nice little touches, like the details here are painted. And it looks good. So this piece right here, you can see connects in there. It seems like it might be glued in place, that hose right there. But yeah, overall it's looking very nice in terms of articulation. You get a ball joint at the top of the head, and the shoulders are insert molded, so you can move them around like that. And right here at the elbows, it's going to be the same thing. Now these joints are actually kind of thin. Like look how skinny that joint is right there. So maybe just be careful when you're moving it around. You don't want to damage that. Seems like the right one maybe is about, is it bigger? No. Yeah, they're just kind of small joints, which is cool because they look smaller and they're not as noticeable. But, maybe the fragility would be an issue. Here at the wrists. So these ones actually do hinge. This one hinges forward and back and rotates, unlike the Stormtrooper Luke. The right one actually hinges up and down. So you actually get some pretty nice movement from those. There's a ball joint here at the torso, so you get good movement there. You do have the insert molded connections there at the hips. This one actually moves really well, but the right one, it moves well too. I thought maybe it was restricted from this harness, but it's actually not too bad. To move it forward, you just rotate and then push forward, and it goes practically all the way. And then here at the knees, same type of articulation. So again, these joints are kind of thin. Same thing that we saw at the elbows. So I would be a little bit careful when posing that. And then here at the ankles, you can swivel those up and down. You can rotate it. And yeah, seems to get some pretty good movement there. I wouldn't quite call it a rocker, but it seems like it gets some pretty nice movement nonetheless. This helmet is a brand new sculpt. It's painted very nicely. It's sculpted very nicely. Let me just compare it for you with the previous X-Wing Luke's helmet. And you can definitely see that it looks a little bit more proportionate. Even the straps on the chin are a little bit smaller. And just overall, I think it looks a little bit brighter. It looks a little bit cleaner. And as far as getting it on his head, well, basically you just slide it over. Now the chin strap is a little bit pliable, so you can, move it a little bit. So let's just go ahead and put it underneath his chin, and then we'll pull it back like that. Yeah, that's a really nice fit. It's a nice size, and it covers most of the back of his head. It looks good. Looks really good. You can still see his eyes through it, so I think they actually handled that really well. We also get Luke Skywalker's blaster, which we've seen blasters like this before. I think it might be a new sculpt. You can see it's painted really nicely. Because when you look at the previous one, it's actually pretty bulky in comparison. I think it's a new sculpt. I don't recall having seen this exact one with any previous figures. Now, there isn't anywhere to put the blaster on his body. Like there's no holster or anything for it, nor is there a slot for a lightsaber, which he doesn't come with a lightsaber anyway, but there's not a place to peg one in there on the belt. Here's a comparison with our previous definitive X-Wing Luke, and that was from the VOTC line back in 2004. This one was actually a repaint of that figure that was released in Saga Legends. That's why it has like the more shiny looking harness there. It's a little more metallic looking. But you can see that the new one is a little bit taller. You can see that the proportions look a little bit better overall. I will say that the new one is a little hard to stand for some reason. I think the legs may have been a little warped in the packaging or something. But nonetheless, just looking at them one next to the other, you can see how vast of an improvement the vintage collection version is. Even when you pull the helmets off, I mean, like, why does this one have like dark brown hair? Just seems a little weird. It's shaped a little bit weird. Whereas this new one, even though it might not be perfect, you can still see that it's clearly a big improvement, especially with that photoreal paint. That really goes a long way into enhancing the aesthetics of these figures as portraits. And finally, here is Luke Skywalker in his Jedi Knight outfit. Now, this looks awesome. The cloak, it looks like they finally nailed the application of soft goods on figures, because this looks really natural. It just contours around his body very nicely. It's got a very nice drape to it. Now, it's obviously a tighter fit than what we typically see, but it seems like it's doing its job. We pull the figure in closer. I mean, yeah, just the way that the cloak and the hood contours around his head. Like, this is probably the best looking soft goods I've seen on a Hasbro figure. Like, seriously, it looks awesome. The color's correct. You know, it's that dark brown color. It just looks like it fits him very nicely. It looks awesome. It is kind of folded a little bit down here, so you can see it does kind of open up a little bit more. So you can pull it out like that and kind of cover him a little bit better. In the movie, it never really like closed all the way. It was kind of always hanging open like this for the most part. So I can forgive that it doesn't close all the way just because of how nicely it drapes around his body. It's also not too long. You can see that it hangs just to his ankles. You know, it's not too long or too short. So that is really cool. So we'll just go ahead and pull this off, and it comes off very easily, and you are left with this. This looks awesome. This looks awesome. We've seen this sculpt before. It's the same body that the Vintage Collection Luke has, or at least the one they did from the deleted scene. It's painted a little bit differently, and it has a brand new head. Speaking of the head, look at this. It looks really good. Now, once again, the hair is a separately sculpted piece. You can see that it's glued down, and it looks really good. I mean, the eyes are done nicely. It's got a nice expression. It still might not be as good as the Stormtrooper Luke, maybe, but it looks really nice nonetheless. The hair is done nicely. Once again, it's highlighted a little bit. It might be a little bit light overall, in fact. I kind of feel like Luke's hair was a little bit darker, but it still looks good. It's pretty close, and the skin tone is very nice. So the photoreal helps a lot to contour the face a little bit. So it looks good. The costume looks good. I like how it's this really matte plastic, especially like here in the torso, and then how you have the vest painted a lighter gray. It's dark gray, but it's lighter for sure than a lot of what he's wearing. So this is really nice. And the boots are a little bit glossier, but for the most part, they did a nice job with this more matte plastic. Definitely looks a little more realistic. Sculpted very nicely. In terms of the joints, we have a ball joint here at the head. Get some pretty nice movement from it. Insert molded joints at the shoulders. Same thing here at the elbows. They move more than 90 degrees. Quite nice. Rotate. The wrists go up and down on the left. Rotate. On the right also goes up and down. Rotate. You have a joint here at the torso. For all intents and purposes, it's basically a swivel. It doesn't really do a whole lot up and down. Here at the hips, you get a pretty nice split out of Luke, and you just rotate it and pop it forward to get that forward motion from the figure, just like that. Here at the knees, you can bend it, you can rotate it, and here at the ankle, the same thing. So overall, it is pretty nicely articulated. For accessories, Luke comes with his green-bladed lightsaber. Now, the problem I have with it is that it's still the wrong sculpt. It's still Obi-Wan's hilt from A New Hope. They still have not given Luke a proper lightsaber. Actually, they did for the 5POA one that came out. I think it was Saga Legends or Mission Series in like 2013, 2014, in that time frame. They actually did give him the correct lightsaber, but they've gone backwards and given him Obi-Wan's lightsaber hilt again. So I'll just bring in the one from the Vintage Collection, and it's basically the same thing. The blade maybe is a little bit different color, but overall it's pretty similar. But nice shade of green for the blade. It's just too bad they haven't fixed the hilt yet. He's also got the blaster that he used very briefly in Jabba's palace, and that is also painted very nicely. We'll go and bring in our Vintage Collection Luke Skywalker from the deleted scene, which was previously the best version of this character in this outfit. And I mean, again, the soft goods just look day and night between the two figures. It's really quite amazing how different they look when you just compare them side by side. And this is really interesting. I thought that they were exactly the same body, just the head was different. But when I look at them now, the belt is obviously different. Like this one you can see has, you know, like more of a sash. This one has a belt. So that is interesting. And I don't know. I mean, it almost looks like, it almost looks to me like the torsos might be a little bit different. Like I can see where the sculpts look very similar. Like if you look at the wrinkles, they look pretty much the same, right? But I don't know. I feel like his vest looks a little bit wider than it does on this figure. I mean, it could just be partly that the gloss is throwing it off for me. Like, you know, this one is very glossy and this one's not. But I don't know. Like the back right here, it looks like a different sculpt than this. Now, as far as the arms go, I think they're the same arms. Yeah, they look to be the same arms. I mean, but the hands looked a little bit different too. Like, I feel like this one has a bigger hand than the new one does. On this side, yeah, the hands are definitely different. The legs, the articulation even looks a little bit different. Like just the way, I mean, it's similar, again, very similar, but still slightly different. This is very interesting. Like the soles of the feet look different as well. I mean, similar again, but the shapes are slightly different. So it's really interesting. It almost feels like they tried to resculpt this exact figure, but kind of beefed it up a little bit in terms of the proportions. So yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to say it's the exact figure because it doesn't seem like it is. I mean, the head's obviously different, but even the body seems like it might be like a resculpt of this figure, which is very interesting to see. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so there you have it. This is the Hasbro Star Wars The Vintage Collection Special Action Figure Set for Luke Skywalker, San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. Overall, you guys, I am very happy with the figures that came in this set. Now, if you don't have any of these Luke Skywalker figures and these outfits, then this is really a good one to add to your collection. But even if you do, I think all of these are worthy of upgrading your previous Luke figures to bring them current into 2019. I'm really happy with all of them. There are some really great things going on here, like Stormtrooper Luke has an awesome looking head. The physique of the X-Wing Luke is great. And then the soft goods on the Jedi Knight Luke is really well executed. It's awesome. And even that figure, just all the way around, is a really nice improvement from the vintage collection version of Luke, which is a similar figure, but as you saw, seems to be a little bit different overall. So the set costs $54 at San Diego Comic-Con, which is a little bit steep. I kind of feel like $45 might have been a little more of a fair price, but it is an exclusive. They always mark those up. And these will be available on the Hasbro Pulse website on September 10th. So if you want to add it to your collection, stay tuned to Hasbro Pulse on that day. I imagine they might go pretty quickly, so, just be sure that you're there. But yeah, I'm really happy with this set. I hope you've enjoyed this review. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Which of these is your favorite? And will you be adding it to your collection? As always, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to Victoria's Cantina. Until next time, bye-bye.